An Australian military plane is currently taking part in one of the saddest missions ever assigned to the RAAF. The C-17 Globemaster will be bringing the bodies recovered from the downed Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 to the Netherlands for identification.
And SBS reporter Ben Lewis is in Kiev and joins us live. Ben, these flights will be welcomed by grieving families around the world.
Absolutely, Ricardo, and as we go to air tonight, the first of the victims' bodies are being transported onto a military plane in the city of Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine. There is a full military honour guard there made up of Ukrainian and Dutch soldiers, providing some formality and also some dignity finally for the victims of flight MH17. Australia's special envoy to Ukraine, Angus Houston, is there. He will be supervising some of the ramp ceremonies and he spoke just a short time ago.
Our nations are now mourning the 298 men, women and children whose lives were lost. We stand together today, united in grief, with the families and friends who have lost people they cherish.
Governor-General Peter Cosgrove will arrive in the Netherlands later tonight, Australian time, to formally receive the remains on behalf of the Australian government. And Prime Minister Tony Abbott has made an offer to Australian victims' families, giving them the opportunity to also fly to the Netherlands if they wish to accompany home their loved ones' remains. The big concern of the Australians at the moment, though, is the fact that of the bodies taken from the crash site, there seem to be far fewer than first thought. After a 16-hour journey that included passing through battle-scarred Donetsk, a train carrying the remains of passengers from flight MH17 reaches the city of Kharkiv. But there's still more work to be done, with Dutch officials confirming only about 2/3 of the bodies have been recovered.
What we are sure of are 200. There are more remains and the investigation will point out which remains will fit to which person. And that is what we are going to do in Holland with all the help of the Ukraine government.
Finding the rest of the remains may take some time.
And as long as it's possible that there are any Australian remains out there, we owe it to the families to do our utmost, to do our absolute utmost to recover them.
It's been nearly a week and a full-scale investigation at the crash site is yet to happen.
It's quite possible that many bodies are still out there in the open, in the European summer, subject to interference and subject to the ravages of heat and animals.
International observers are still grappling with a lack of security and alarming scenes within the wreckage.
The other day when we were at the cockpit section, when we were leaving, we did see workers using a diesel-powered saw to get a closer look at the fuselage. We can't draw any conclusions, that's not our role, but it's an observation that we made.
Investigators have since sent the plane's black box recorders to Britain. Prime Minister David Cameron says its air accident investigators are among the best in the world. But
the people who probably have the really valuable information about what happened to this flight are indeed the Russians themselves, and they should release what they know about what happened.
One unnamed US official insists the most plausible explanation is that the plane was accidentally shot down by ill-trained pro-Russian separatists. As President Obama expressed his condolences at the Dutch embassy in Washington, the White House was preparing to release intelligence backing what many have already concluded.
We believe the most likely outcome here was that this was an SA-11 originated from Russian separatist-controlled areas.
The crash also dominated discussion in Ukraine's parliament, but it became heated as one official criticised authorities for failing to adopt a ceasefire in the area the plane was shot down. His accusation that Ukraine was running a war against its own people led to scuffles. Even in the halls of power, the fight for Ukraine shows no sign of abating. A team of air crash investigators from Malaysia has finally arrived at the wreckage site near Donetsk to begin their important work. It's not just the scale of this disaster, though, that makes the job so challenging, but the fact that they have to work shoulder to shoulder with armed rebels.
It was an air disaster like no other, and it continues to be a recovery operation like no other.
European ministers are currently considering taking tougher economic sanctions against Russia in the wake of the MH17 tragedy, but it's not clear if there is the political will across all of Europe for a tougher stance to be taken.
European Union foreign ministers are increasing the pressure on President Putin's inner circle.
In the last few minutes, we've had confirmation that the Black Bloc's flight recorders have arrived in the United Kingdom for analysis. And Ricardo and Janice, many people have been asking how long it could take for the Australian victims' bodies to be returned home. Dutch officials say it could take weeks, even months.
Okay, Ben Lewis there in Kiev.